seems like Jimmy could be the starter in 2021. I mean, realistically, we just won't know right now. This is something we're going to find out over time until week 1, maybe even going into the season. So setting aside, the whole situation, if Jimmy is the starter in 2021, what do you think is the ceiling for the 49ers with him?
Ceiling is, I think if you can say in terms of wins, you'd have to go, oh God, I'd say in terms of wins, like 11 wins max. That's their ceiling with him, because it's not like people are too locked on to Jimmy for the 5-game winning streak in 2018 or 2017. And they're too locked on to 2019 Jimmy, which both are wrong, because 2017 Jimmy is dead ever since he tore his ACL. 2019 Jimmy's not the same, because that defense is as great as they were last year. They still were levels off 2019. And I think they're going to be levels off again without Robert Saleh, which I think people massively underrated. Immediately wasn't praised enough, wasn't loved enough. Not saying D'Amico's not going to be fine, but I feel like if I were to say the defense is going to be fine, I'm not doing Robert Saleh a service of you don't realize how talented this guy was. Just getting to speak with him in 2019, that guy is a genius. So I would say that the 11 wins is the most you're going to get, but I could definitely see a 9-win scenario, 9-8, 10-7, because there's just so much that it's not going to be the same. You look at it, they're going to see Jimmy Garoppolo just load the box and force him to throw. And if they can win, and if teams can win on that first down and stop everything within 2 yards, keep it a 2-yard gain, then that's exactly where they want them, because it's when it's like 3rd and 4 and less where Jimmy can still get you out. It's when it's past that Jimmy's all of a sudden like, oh God, dude. Yeah. And you already know probably Shanahan's probably going to dial something out, want to dial something up, going to the sidelines, a quick one. And Jimmy just can't hit those. Even watching him in practice these last couple of years, he's like, yeah, he really struggled. I mean, it is a tough throw, but I mean, yeah, he really can't hit those. I mean, even in 2019, I acknowledge that like his best strength is fast release, but that's because it's one reads. He has one read to make, fast release until the middle of the field, because he knows how to like hit some of those zones, just try to hit those strides like a good portion of the time. But now it's like, how is he going to look now again, coming off more injuries? Is that going to hurt him again? Is he going to feel pressured off Lance, knowing that the moment he makes 1 or 2 mistakes, especially if they're consecutive or in the same drive, the clock's only going to get faster. So I think in this sense, that's why they want him. When you're saying there's a rift, like there could be a rift in terms of if they just straight up dethrone Jimmy. Right. But I think in that sense, you want Trey Lance to earn it, which is what, like again, we keep saying you want him to earn it. You want to set him up. And the 49ers are good, at least Kyle, or I don't know who was in on it. Let's say the 49ers are good at this because they did that with Verrett last training camp. And me and Grant were flabbergasted at that sense, because I didn't think Verrett looked that great in camp. He looked cool. He looked solid. Yeah. But he had Dante Pettis getting Stewie on him on routes, which was ridiculous to me. I was like, why are he supposed to start? And I thought Mosley and Witherspoon especially looked really good. They really wanted Verrett to look good, and they were doing everything they can to give him the job. And sure enough, they knew what they saw, but, stroke of luck on their end that he was actually the healthy one in a year where everyone was injured. Shocking. But I'd say that's what they're doing with Lance in terms of they know how to set him up and get him through the steps, which is what they're doing now. They started him today in training camp, got some runs with the first team. So that's why it's all on Lance. I don't think it's all on Jimmy. If he could keep playing well, sure is that he's nice. His feet are nice and wet or nice. He's like waist high, chest high in terms of the playbook. Doesn't have too many technique problems. Knows where to go with the ball. Then he's not done. I think he might be a backup, but that's why you want to trade him. And that's where they'll set him up perfectly. If they can trade him, then we love Jimmy. We already knew. We told him this is the direction, and he's probably going to want to go somewhere where he can legitimately start versus just wait on Lance to get injured. Because I feel like if Lance is the starter, you can't go back to Jimmy even if he's playing poorly. No. You only go to him when you work through him. You don't pull a Tua Tagovailoa where you bench him, which I thought was stupid. It's like, all right, let him work through it. You don't stunt the growth. All right, you let him work through it, get him through these pressure situations, and you rail on him in weeks of practice to figure it out. So I think that's where you're at with Jimmy and the Trey situation in terms of if Jimmy's a starter, what you're projecting to be.
Yeah, and with the Trey situation, I think you hit that on the nail. Really, is that I feel like it's really entirely dependent on what Trey Lance does. Jimmy Garoppolo, his involvement in this process, it's almost a placeholder at this point, right? In my
Yeah.
opinion, at least. And with Jimmy Garoppolo, getting back to Jimmy Garoppolo's ceiling though for this season for the 49ers, because we can't predict, we can't make projections, we don't know what's going to happen. It seems like Jimmy could be the starter right now, so if he is, in my opinion, I agree with what you were saying. I think at maximum they're an 11-win football team. They could get into the playoffs, maybe win a game, but beyond that, I don't really see Jimmy Garoppolo elevating this team. And you brought up some great points, which when I was preparing for this is a lot of the same stuff I was thinking, is that people have this idea that 2019 Jimmy and 2021 Jimmy are going to be the same player, but what they don't realize is he's had more injuries, of course, that's obvious, but the team around Jimmy is not better than they were in 2019. I think you could argue maybe the running back room is better, maybe the offensive line is slightly better, but beyond that, the rest of this team is at the same level or worse. I think the weapons are similar to what they were in 2019. Listen, Brandon Ayuk could take a huge step, but even between the 49ers' three main weapons, all those guys have injury risks. So you don't know if you're going to be getting them for the full season. Then if you look at that defense, you brought up some great points. They're not going to have DeForest Buckner, of course, from 2019. We don't know. We don't even know what's going on with D Ford right now. It's a guess at this point. So I think overall, and I'm going to get into this more into some of our other topics, I'm worried. I think this defense is not going to be as good as people are anticipating it to be. I think you brought up that Robert Saleh point. It's not that it's a knock on DeMeco Ryans, like you were explaining. It's just that Robert Saleh was such an elite defensive coordinator by those last few years with San Francisco that to expect a coordinator who's never called plays before, who's never been a defensive coordinator before, to come in and replicate that, to me, is very wishful thinking. So I think overall their ceiling is not as high as everybody is putting out there. Look, could they win 12, 13 games with Jimmy? Yeah, but that would, in my opinion, everything would have to go right for them, and a lot of things would have to go wrong for other teams. I think it's 49ers fans are very wishful in their thinking right now, and I agree with you, Jose, in that they're in that 9, 10, 11 win range. That's kind of the sweet spot, I feel like, for the 49ers this season with Jimmy Garoppolo.